Thank you so much. As I mentioned earlier, what has moved people about he for she is that it takes an inclusive approach to gender by recognizing that it affects all people. Our next speaker, Edgar Ramírez, is a renowned actor, thought leader, and UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador. And he'll tell us more about that. You may have seen him in movies like Point Break or Joy, but if not, you can catch him in the currently playing Hands of Stone and the upcoming Girl on the Train. So please, welcome to the stage, Mr. Edgar Ramírez.
Good evening. His Excellency, President of Finland, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests. It is my honor and pleasure to be here tonight as part of this He for She second year anniversary. And it's a huge pleasure because personally it is a real special night for me. Some of you may know me as an actor, but one of my early career ambitions was to be a diplomat or a politician. So I'm definitely getting to live my second dream tonight. I'd like to begin my remarks by posing a question. What does it mean to be human? I know, this is a big question, and I'm sure we all have our own ideas, but I'd like to share my perspective. During my university days, I was attracted to a number of different fields. To name a few, politics, sociology, journalism, and acting. I ultimately became a journalist and then an actor. At first sight, they might seem very dissimilar from each other, but looking back, I see a common thread that connected them. A profound fascination with the human condition. I wanted and still want to better understand humanity. What motivates us, what inspires us, what makes us do the things we do. By pursuing acting, I might have chosen the most poetic among these disciplines. But each of them offers a piece of the truth and partly answers the question, what does it mean to be human? I'm able to discover this truth by exploring the nature of my characters and their contradictions. When I approach a role, it is often first with the eye of a journalist. I begin by documenting as much as possible the historical context of the character, the spirit of its time, the events surrounding his life. If my character is based on a real person, which I've done plenty, I hold interviews wherever possible by posing questions to someone I'm cast to play, or to a family member, or to a close friend, or someone who can provide me with a sense of his public perception. I get the first insights into my character's humanity. But as an actor, I must go even deeper. I have to go to the core of my character's feelings. To give an honest performance, I have to fully establish empathy. Acting is nothing but an act of empathy. I have to get inside their emotions and feel what they feel. And through this process, one of the things that I'm reminded of over and over is that all people feel, and they feel deeply. And all people struggle with those feelings because feelings inherently exist in contradiction. This is part of what it means to be human. Our feelings and our contradictions are as human as our blood and our bones. And in the same way that we struggle with our internal contradictions, our society struggles with its own. For instance, how does a being, a person, who feels so deeply, as we all do, thrive in a culture that discourages feelings? That is a reality. And it is the reality for many people around the world, and particularly acute for men and boys. And I know it well because I was one of those boys. In the macho-normative culture that pervades much of the world, little boys are told not to cry. They're taught to suppress their fear or turn it into anger. Male adolescents are given the message that their role is to dominate, and that studying art or music or drama is somehow not masculine. Cultural messages about masculinity often involve being tough and disrespecting women. As boys grow into men, they're told that being a man means having power over someone or being incredibly successful and earning lots of money. Men are taught that if we are not the ultimate provider, then we are a complete failure. We have to be number one in everything we do. There's nothing more delusional or more paralyzing than what I just described. As a student of the human condition and a man in a macho-normative culture, I've seen firsthand that this paradigm sets many men and boys up for failure. To be taught there are sadness and fear, anguish and grief, the very things that make us human, our feelings are shameful. To be encouraged to suppress our humanity and conform to socially accepted views of what it means to be a man. To absorb in our skin a version of success that is burdensome, unnatural, and excessively competitive. These distortions come with grave consequences for men, women, and societies as a whole. When men lack a healthy way to express despair or grief or rage, it often turns inward in the form of depression or even suicide. Suicide rates tend to be about 3 times higher for men than for women. As Emma Watson mentioned in her 2014 UN speech, in the United Kingdom, suicide is still the greatest killer of men ages 20 to 34. Yet, the discussion of male mental health is completely taboo in many parts of the world. On the flip side, when men's unchanneled emotion, particularly anger, turns outward, it is often deadly. Men are much more likely to commit acts of violence, including sexual assault and domestic violence. Some have even postulated that the recent epidemic of mass shootings is related to a culture of toxic masculinity and its unfortunate byproduct, isolation. It is not my purpose to let anyone off the hook for their actions. Personal responsibility is still paramount, and violence against anyone of any gender is completely unacceptable. But we cannot ignore the role of confining and destructive social norms. Doing so jeopardizes us all. There has long been a misconception that gender equality is a women's movement. But gender equality is actually about just that, equality. It is a liberation movement for all genders. It is a liberation movement for each and every person that has ever felt the burden of a gender stereotype, or the pain of discrimination, or the pressure to fit into an uncomfortable mold. And part of this liberation movement requires that we call out and break down these social norms and barriers to our well-being so that we may all be free to be our true selves. In the journey for equality, women and men are like 2 strands of DNA wrapped together in an embrace. Our burdens are as intertwined as our common destiny. The constraints that burden me will eventually burden you. And the same is true in reverse. As long as you are burdened, I am too. By recognizing this interdependence, I can work for your well-being and know that I'm also working toward my own. I can know that whatever action I take to free you also frees me. And this is not just about what makes us human. This is what makes us a human family. And that brings me back to my original question. What does it mean to be human? While I appreciate how different fields help us get closer to the answer to that question, I'm grateful that I pursued acting. It was a truly scary choice at the time, but I'm grateful. And I'm grateful because my characters have not only shown me human truth, but they have revealed to me my own truth, my own contradictions. Acting has taught me to resist labels. I know that my characters are not good or bad or strong or weak in the same way that I know that about myself. Their beauty, Our beauty is born out of our contradictions and the blending of light and darkness and the combination of all of our traits. There's power in embracing that. There's power in embracing everything we feel. Because all human beings display different attributes in different proportions at different moments in our lives. We're all fragile sometimes. And we're all tough sometimes. We're all sorrowful sometimes. And we're all hopeful sometimes. We're all afraid sometimes. But we're all brave sometimes. We're all the darkness, and we're all the light. These traits don't make us a man or a woman. They make us human. Thank you.